Hello and welcome to Please Me. Last week, Eve interviewed Zion Salam, a medical doctor and author of the dystopian novel called With Love from Planet B, where she talks about shifting the narrative of the gender of God, challenging gender norms and the role of pornography, and misogyny on our collective understanding of sexuality, and so much more. This one is by far one of my faves and a must listen. This podcast is intended for mature audiences. Eve is a licensed sexual health physical therapist on a mission to destigmatize conversations about sex. Please sit back and surrender to the pleasure of Please Me. Who's looking for a sexy date? STC.com is the premier ethically non-monogamous dating site that also houses a wealth of information regarding sexuality and sexual health. Join the Please Me Health Collective on STC.com and listen to Eve's free live webinars. Use code 37340 for a free trial membership. Maybe you're in the market for some sexy toys to add some spice to the bedroom. Check out the Organic Lovin' link for the best online store for sex toys, lubes, and more.
So for some people, they love it. I have, a client who just says, I went from out to wow using the Boudoir butter. Yet I have somebody who, before sex butter, they would give her lidocaine for the pain afterwards.
Wow, that's
Then
very
it didn't work.
intense.
And it didn't work. But the sex butter, she applied it out right after she worked with the therapist, she didn't have pain. And she just buys all the time. She's nothing to do with sex.
Are you suffering from erectile dysfunction in silence? Are you embarrassed by premature ejaculation? Is it hard to get an erection that is long enough for penetration or that lasts long enough to satisfy your partner and yourself? Just know that you are not alone and that 20% of men suffer from erectile dysfunction in their 20s, and it goes up 10% per decade. So 50% of men in their 50s will have some form of erectile dysfunction. My name is Eve Hall, a licensed physical therapist who treats conditions such as erectile dysfunction and other sexual health conditions. I'm here to tell you that there is a solution to erectile dysfunction, and I offer the gold standard in my practice called Inspire Health Physical Therapy and Wellness. I have a full protocol to get your sexy back, so know that I am here to help. Just know that there is no shame in having any sexual health condition, including erectile dysfunction. If that is you, be sure to reach me on STC.com and leave me a message there, or reach me on pleaseme.online to listen to my podcasts, or to leave me a message and book an appointment today. Hello, and welcome to Please Me, the podcast that aims to destigmatize conversations about sex and sexual health by turning the sheets into our classroom. Today, I am so excited to welcome Bonnie Gayle and Bonnie Rogers to the show. Bonnie Gayle was an accountant, and at 41, she was diagnosed with something called vaginal atrophy. And at that moment, she changed her life because she was on a mission to find a solution to the vaginal pain that she was experiencing, and also the inability to have sex without pain. And so I am so excited to talk to you about what you created. You became an inventor, and with a biochemist, you were able to create a product called Body Butter and Sex Butter. And we're going to be delving into that in a little bit. But I just want to welcome you to the show, Bonnie.
Thank you.
And now I'm going to introduce Bonnie Rogers. And Bonnie Rogers is a clinical herbalist and a biomagnetism practitioner. And she was using Bonnie Gayle's products for several years on her clients and sharing it with her clients. And now she is the new owner of this product. So welcome, Bonnie, to the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Of course. I'm so excited to be part of this transition for you guys. And I wanted to first ask Bonnie about the vaginal atrophy. Do you want to talk to us about what exactly vaginal atrophy is and how it felt for you?
So vaginal atrophy, I don't necessarily know the clinical definition, but basically where there's a huge irritation inside the vaginal canal area and all of the tissues, you feel You are swollen, it's raw, it's a stinging feeling, it's painful all the time. It doesn't matter. Like, this was not even about having sex, it was about being able to be comfortable in my skin, whether I was sitting, standing, walking, or doing whatever I was doing in daily life. Because literally, when I went into perimenopause, the only issue that I really had was this vaginal issue, but it was so intense that it literally stopped me from doing a lot of things in my life until I got that taken care of.
Yes, and vaginal atrophy is actually a condition that's caused in perimenopause because of a decrease in estrogen. So that's what starts off the issue, right? And then the tissue becomes very weak because there's no estrogen in the receptor areas, and that causes weakness in the tissue. And that can also cause vaginal dryness. And when you have vaginal dryness, it causes little micro tears. So you're always in pain. You may not see little micro tears, but you can certainly feel them. And a lot of times people will describe it as having like knives down there or little like razor blades, right? As you're walking, you're feeling this cutting sensation, like this sharp pain. And so it is extremely painful and uncomfortable, and definitely something that I think is so important to talk about, because as women we face all of these issues, and a lot of times they're hush, right? And we need to be able to talk about these things in order to help each other and to, live our lives to the best of that we can. And especially for me, being the host of this podcast and talking about pleasure, we want to be able to experience pleasure well into our 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond, right? So, Bonnie, tell me a little bit about what you do as a clinical herbalist and a biomagnetism practitioner.
I've been an herbalist for 25 years. And I help create just plans, whether it's with herbs, with nutrition, that help somebody's health issue resolve. And so that they can feel better walking in their body. I've been working with the sex butter product for many years. It's got to be, I don't know, 10, 12, something like that. And I've been selling it to clients and people who found me on the internet. And they just love it. I remember one day I was talking to a client and my husband was in the room across the hall. And this is a woman who was in her 80s and she just has a new boyfriend. And
Love it.
she says, "Please help me." And I said to her, "When's the last time that you had been intimate?" She said, "I have no idea, but I'm really dry." And I said to her, "Let's start with your fingers. Use one finger. When you feel comfortable, get to two, get to three. When you can get three fingers in there and you're comfortable, then you can invite him in. Because if you invite him in before that, you're never going to let him back in. And sex butter is going to allow you to get the moisture in you. But if you're a rubber band and you're this big and you want to be this big, you're not getting there unless you can really work it." And my husband comes to me later and he says to me, "Did you just tell some lady to masturbate?" I said, "I did." I said, "It's not a dirty thing. It's about working with your body so that you can enjoy things." And he just laughed and laughed. But it's so true. We have to, as practitioners, all of us, we need to explain to people that you can't necessarily just jump into doing something. You're not going into the Olympics before you train, and we have to train our bodies sometimes. It's like that time that you go out and you walk 10 miles and you can't move for the next 3 weeks because you're not
Exactly.
ready and you have to train. And it's the same thing with our body. Our body needs to sometimes practice and do things before we can go full on. But the majority of people aren't that dry. I remember one day Bonnie says to me, she calls me, she says, "Oh my God, I didn't apply." And she applies sex butter every day. And she says to me, "I think I forgot to apply sex butter for the last 3 days." And it was when she was living in LA and there was a Santa Ana wind. She says, "I am so much pain."
Wow.
I'm like, "Go apply it right now. Come back to the phone." And it took her a few days and she was fine. But so for some people, they need to apply this every day. Bonnie and I prefer sex butter, but we have plenty of clients who don't want the peppermint. They don't want the stimulation. For some people, it helps with orgasm and it's also very healing. But for some people, they don't want that. They just want moisture.
right,
And
right.
so many of the products that you can go and get, vaginal moisturizers, are filled with toxic chemicals. And
That's
you're
right.
putting that on this part of your body that absorbs everything.
Everything, because you're putting it right on the mucosal membrane, which absorbs 100% of what you put onto it.
Absolutely.
So this is an amazing product because it's completely all natural.
Not
And
just
I
the
love
natural, it's organic.
That's right. And I love that you said about the finger and then increasing to 2 and then 3. And as a physical therapist, this is a treatment that I do. And we use something called expanders. And you start with a very small one and you slowly and gradually work your way up so that your body can get used to having penetration, right? Because if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And the muscles of the vagina is completely lined with muscles, as is the pelvic floor. The pelvic floor is all muscles, right? So if you're not using those muscles regularly, you will atrophy. And that is what atrophy is. If you think about someone wearing a cast on their arm or on their leg, right? And they wear it for 6 to 8 weeks and then they take it off and their muscles are so skinny, everything's so skinny underneath because you're not using those muscles, right? So the same applies for the vagina and the vaginal tissue and the pelvic floor. So it's really important to keep those muscles strong. And what you described is basically a therapy practice that I would do in my practice for someone that was experiencing vaginismus, which is painful sex. I love that
And
you
the other thing
explained
is
that.
you can use a little bit of the sex butter on those expanders so that they slide in easier, just like you can use it on toys.
Absolutely. And I love that point too. And I'm just curious because I know that certain oils are not supposed to be used with condoms. Would you recommend using these products with condoms?
So there's no petroleum oil in here. There are in most things. There are oils. So on the label, it says, be careful with condoms, or I don't have my glasses on at the moment. I've got plenty of people who use it with condoms all the time, but I'm not taking the liability for if something happens. Bonnie, you've used them with condoms.
I've used them with condoms. I've never had a condom break using sex butter. I didn't use the boudoir butter, but I don't see where that would be any different. I think it's really also some people are like super, super wild in bed. And maybe if they're really like writhing around like in a crazy way, maybe it could, but I've never had an issue with it. And I'm pretty active.
And I will say here too that when you are using a condom, you have to change the condom regularly. So if you are going beyond, say, 30 minutes, you should be changing your condom anyway. So if you do that, if you practice safe condom usage and you're changing your condom regularly and you're applying lubrication to make sure that there's no sticking as you are penetrating, then there really shouldn't be an issue with using the body butter. And I love coconut oil. That's what I usually use. I use it with condoms sometimes, and I never have a problem as well. But again, you're not supposed to use coconut oil with condoms. But if you change your condom regularly, you're not going to have these issues. If you're using the same condom for 2 hours, of course it's going to break. So be conscious of that because it's a thin membrane that can easily tear with friction. So going back to the vaginal atrophy, Bonnie, do you want to just jump in and tell me how long it took for you to really start feeling better once you had your product created and you started using it?
So it took about 6 months before we got the formulation right,
Okay.
with a lot of different versions along the way. And basically, I was the original tester. And then when I got to a point of where I had 3 products that I loved, then I basically sent it out and had 100 different women test.
Nice.
And that's how we got to it. But once we had the final product, it was not a long period of time. It was like probably a month. But in that month, I really started to feel relief, like really pretty much within a few days. So even though it took a month to really fully not feel any pain, no matter what I was doing, even if I was having sex, I was so relieved after like just a few days that I started feeling good again. I started feeling like myself because, like, literally, I became depressed. I was a very sexually active person. I was with a partner and my sex life was important to me. So this was like a big deal to me that this happened. And like some people are not that sexually active. And so they don't really think about it that much. So that's why, like vaginal atrophy, I was really surprised. That's what I had because I was active all the way up
Right.
until up literally until that. It's like overnight it changed.
Interesting. And I wonder if that's when your estrogen just decided to jump off the cliff. And I'm just curious because I have spoken about estrogen and progesterone on the show and even DHEA as hormones that we as women need in our bodies in order for our tissue to be healthy. Do you take a hormone replacement?
I don't, but I'm going to tell you why. So my mom was on hormone replacement therapy when she was 40 and she literally got cancer because of it. I know that it's probably not the same type that there are today. However, this is already 19 years ago for me. So at the time, I was like really terrified of any hormones at the time. And so I haven't been taking any hormone replacement therapy the whole time.
And I never needed to.
Okay, that's interesting. It's interesting that you say that. And there were some studies that had been done and conducted many years ago saying that there may have been a link between cancer and hormone replacement. But all of those studies actually have been debunked. And now it's really considered very safe to use hormone replacement. So I am just putting that out there just because I want people to understand that it is safe to use hormone replacement if that's the avenue that you want to go. You can also go the avenue that Bonnie and Bonnie, which has been to use natural products to add that extra layer of moisture to the area. And so I want to talk about my experience because I was so excited when you said that you were going to send me some products. And so I decided to try them myself and I love them both. The Boudoir butter is something that I've been using daily, and that just adds a little layer of moisture. And I like how it makes my body feel. I almost feel like it makes me feel like before menopause, like my natural body fluids. It almost allows my body to create its own fluids. I don't know if that's possible. It feels like it is completely like natural and normal and my normal state of vaginal moisture. So I love using that every day. And I have used the sex butter as well. And I like the sensation of the peppermint. And at first, when I smelled it, I thought, oh, this is going to really, it might be uncomfortable because it smelled very strong of peppermint. I thought there was a lot of oil in it, but the smell is really pleasant and it's not overly spicy. Let's just put it that way. It's just enough spice. So if there's like a breeze, if you have a fan on, you can feel that breeze. It just increases the sensitivity just a little bit. And I'm going to say here that a lot of times women will experience decreased sensitivity when their estrogen decreases as well. So if you're having decreased sensitivity, you're not going to have the same experience with sensation and with pleasure. Did you experience decreased sensation as well?
Oh my God, big time. That's why I needed to have the peppermint. Like literally, I had I was not feeling it at all. And when I went from one way to another, and I was like, I got to do something. I got to get this back. This is not acceptable for me to be like this for the rest of my life. That was like my whole goal was to get my body back.
And the peppermint sensation was able to give you a little bit of that extra sensation so that you could feel what you were wanting to feel, which is the pleasure of sex, right? I love that's the reason why you included the peppermint. That's very cool. And I'm just going to mention here too that there is a treatment called acoustic wave therapy that I actually do in my practice. And what it does is it helps to open up blockages in the tissue, and a lot of times there are blockages that are created in your blood vessels over time from nutrition, basically. It's just like plaque that builds up in your arteries and can give you a heart attack or a stroke, right? But those arteries, the small arteries around your genitals, can also become blocked. And that's what causes erectile dysfunction as well as decreased vaginal sensitivity and dryness. So, this is a treatment that I actually do in my practice. So, if you wanted to break up those blockages, the acoustic wave therapy helps with that. And it also increases the capillary formation over the course of time when you do multiple treatments so that you actually increase the circulation to the area. And when you increase the circulation to the area, it can become engorged. And women need to become engorged in order to have sex, right? A lot of times we think, oh, a man needs to have a hard on, right? Or an erection. But we don't really consider that a woman also needs to have an erection too, or a hard on. And it's called being engorged, right? And so we have to prepare the tissue for penetration. It's not just automatically ready. And I think a lot of people that don't understand that. Do you want to just talk about that a little bit, Bonnie R?
I think it's really important for some men, especially older men. I'm not old, but I'm 65. My husband's 68. And men don't get that same hard on that they had when they were 25 years old. They just don't. They need help. We need help. And foreplay, it's all part of the game. And you want to feel good when you're having sex. And so you both have to be prepared. And it is what it is. And I remember when I was young, I've been married for 40, almost 42 years, that we didn't need any additional things and sex was easier. And now we need foreplay and that's fine. But it's important for people, whether they're using this, because remember that dryness it's not only about menopause. People on birth control get dry. There are all kinds of various things on why you might be on some kind of medication that creates dryness. So you may want to use it when you're younger. I find the majority of my clients have gone into menopause and then they're dry, and that's why they're using this.
Right. But you are right. Absolutely. That women in their 20s can also experience dryness. And if you're thinking about sex and you're thinking about having prolonged sex, you may be very wet initially, but if you continuously rub the same wet area over time, just like with a towel on an arm, you
You're
are
gonna
going to
dry.
dry out the tissue, right? Because it evaporates. And so you need to constantly be replenishing that. And the body can only replenish the wetness so quickly. So, yes, absolutely. I always say that lube, right? And this is what we're talking about here. This is like a natural type of lube and it's in butter form, but it is absolutely lube, is for everybody. It's for women in their 20s all the way through their 90s and beyond. Lube is important for everybody so that you can enjoy it from beginning to end. And I love that you said foreplay because we're talking about sex here, and sex is not just penetration, and penetration is how men orgasm. But penetration is not necessarily how women orgasm. Only 3 to 5% of women can orgasm from penetration alone. Do you want to jump in and say anything about that, Bonnie G?
I do. I do. What I wanted to say is that so many people always ask me, can you use sex better for oral sex? And you definitely can. There are all food grade ingredients that are organic. It's healthy. It's healing. It's going to only be good. It tastes very like natural, almost like I would say similar to coconut oil. And sex butter smells, I always said it smelled like a peppermint patty. Whereas the boudoir butter kind of has the scent of white chocolate and a similar type of taste. The other thing is you can also use sex butter and boudoir butter for anal sex and all kinds of play. Like to me, I liked just even having some like on my lips and then somebody would blow on them. That was like a turn on to me. So there's so many things that you can do if you get creative. And it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to be an acrobat. You don't have to look like a porn star. You can be a regular person enjoying intimacy with your partner. And it can just be such a beautiful thing.
I love that. And I love that idea of using it on your lips. And I'm just curious, Have you ever used it, say, on your nipples to bring more sensation there? Because it does create that increased sensation.
Yeah, it does. And
I
I
definitely.
might have it on my fingers because I'm applying it. And I might just put it there. Some It's not consistent. My husband might have it on his fingers, and it's
Right. And it goes there, and then it just, hey, a little extra stimulation. Why not? I love that. Are you in menopause, perimenopause, or postmenopause? I have found the absolute best products called Parlor Games. I use the estriol and progesterone topical creams, and they have been game changers. Maybe you've listened to the show and want to be featured as a guest. Eve uses Podmatch to connect with new or potential guests. Reach out and begin the process today. And like I said before, for a woman, it's only 3 to 5% of women can orgasm for penetration alone. We need external vaginal stimulation in order to orgasm. We need clitoral stimulation in order to orgasm. Most women do. 95% of women do, right? So if
Yep.
you are preparing the area with this amazing butter, maybe getting a massage down there from your partner, or giving yourself a massage and really engorging that area and allowing all that blood to flow there, you're going to have a much more intense experience and a much more enjoyable one. And I want women to know that jumping right into penetration is not going to give you the results that you want, right? And we all want to enjoy ourselves, right? So
Right.
really extending that playtime, extending that session with foreplay and all of that is going to really help to make the experience so much more enjoyable. Bonnie R., you want to say anything about that?
I just think it's really important. One of the stories I wanted to tell you,
Mhm.
Bonnie, you can jump in if you want, is when Bonnie was first creating this and was first putting it on the market, she was introduced to this woman who had breast cancer.
Okay.
And so Bonnie said to her, here's a jar. I want you to try this. Don't have sex for at least a week. Just apply it. And the woman called her 24 hours later crying because it was the first time she'd been able to urinate in years without stinging. And Bonnie says, okay, just keep applying it every day. No sex. And about a week later, she was intimate with her partner, and they called her up the next day and said, oh my God, Bonnie, you want to continue with it?
They were both crying on the phone because they hadn't been able to have sex for 3 or 4 years because she had vaginal cancer. So since she had the cancer, she was not able to have any form of penetration. So it was like the first time ever. And she was like about 40 years old at the time. So I really felt for her. And that's when I realized that, like, what women that have different kinds of cancers, I didn't realize what chemotherapy did to the body until then, because I wasn't researching that aspect of it. I was researching all the menopausal aspect. But she really opened up my world to a whole new world of people that really, really could benefit from this product. And she's still a user of it today. And Sex Butter was born in 2011, so it stands the test of time for the users.
Absolutely. Wow.
Well, this
2011.
there- there's a woman in California that has a young breast cancer survivors group, and she uses it a lot, and then she doesn't seem to need it right now. But just this week, I received an order from a friend of hers who said,
Okay.
so and so told me, and I really need this. I'm like, okay. So many women who have been on chemotherapy, no matter what cancer it is, they're
Right.
struggling because they can't be intimate. They can't even be intimate with themselves. And going to the bathroom, just urinating hurts because it's dry. And
And, that's something that I would not have even thought about, because urine is wet, right? So it comes out, you wouldn't think that it would cause pain, but it causes burning sensation
if
when
you're
you have
dry,
dryness, right? And
if you have eczema, if you have something very dry, water does not help it.
And that's the thing too. It's, yes, you're experiencing dryness, but most likely because of the lack of estrogen allows the tissue to be healthy, right? It's like a chain link fence. And one of the links is estrogen. And if you're missing that link, you're going to have a lot of spaces where you're not having that strength in the tissue. And that can cause little tiny micro tears that you may not even see. But when you urinate, the urine is hitting those tears and it's causing painful urination and burning. And so that is something that I think is amazing that this product can help with, because it is a condition that a lot of times people don't even think about unless they're experiencing it themselves. And we want to avoid all of these things, right? If only we knew. And so that's why this is so important to be talking about, because we want everybody to know so that they don't have to experience these painful conditions. Painful urination is something that one of my clients experienced. And I'm just going to talk about him really quickly. He's a patient that I see for erectile dysfunction. And he started having, because of decreased blood flow, a narrowing of his part of his penis. So part of it came in like an hourglass, and that narrowing caused him to have a lot of difficulty with urination. It was really blocking that tube that goes from the bladder out of your
Right.
body, right? The urethra. And so, with the treatment that I was talking about previously, the acoustic wave therapy, it was able to open up those blockages and also heal that tissue around the scarring there and really allow him to urinate better. So, for men and for women, this is an issue as we get older. And also, if we have experienced cancer treatment. And that wasn't the case for either one of you, right? You didn't experience cancer treatments. It was just like a natural progression of your body as we get older into perimenopause. And sometimes people had really severe symptoms and sometimes they're less severe, right? But either way, knowing about this before it happens, I think is so key.
Yeah. For me,
Absolutely.
it was just something that I went into menopause at 52. And then I had just generalized dryness. And that was around the time when we met. And this really made the difference.
Amazing. And between the two of you, you've helped to improve people's lives so much and to allow them to be intimate with their partners when they weren't able to do that before. And so that's got to make you feel good, because I know when I'm able to do that for somebody, it makes me feel really great. And I am so blessed to be able to do this as my job. I love helping people, especially in this arena, because sex is such an important part of life. And unfortunately, it's such a taboo topic that no one wants to talk about it. But so many people are suffering in silence. And so I think it's so important that we come on here and talk about these things so that we can help people and get their groove back.
Not only that, I think it takes away the stigma when people are able to talk about it, because when it's like this big secret that nobody wants anybody to know about and stuff, and then people are just literally suffering in silence, that's not a good thing for anybody because it comes out in all kinds of different ways, also.
'Cause they think something's wrong with them. Nothing is wrong with you. You might have dry eyes. People, when they go into menopause, you get dry skin, you get dry eyes, you get dry vaginal passages. And people they don't associate dryness. They figure people get wrinkled when they get old. Not everybody should be wrinkled. It's a loss of moisture. Some people's hair gets dry. Everything gets dry for some people, but they don't associate anything. The doctors aren't going to tell you whether it's having more water or having something else that's a little more moisturizing, adding some herbs into the thing. I do this with magnets a lot of times right now. It's really important that people create moisture in their bodies. And then if you have to add something, people put eye drops in for moisture. Now they can use sex butter in the vaginal area.
Absolutely. And I love that you're talking about what doctors recommend, right? Because a lot of times you go to your gynecologist and they're really more focused on their patients that are having kids. They're not thinking, and they don't get a whole lot of education
Well, they
on
want to
how
give
you
hormones or they want to give you medications because that's the platform that they work with. You know,
exactly. And
the
so you
insurance
really
company says this is what you need to do. That's what they do.
and
It's
you
not
have to advocate for yourself, and you have to do some research, and you have to find what works for you. And when a woman normally gets lubrication in the vagina and vaginal area, usually what it is, it's the blood that's flowing to that area. And then when the blood is flowing through that area, the plasma seeps through the walls of the vaginal cavity, and it allows the body to become lubricated. And so, if we are not having enough blood flow, we are not going to have enough lubrication. And like I mentioned before, the acoustic wave therapy is something that can increase that blood flow. And also, I have to say that the peppermint, because it is a tingly sensation, probably also causes an increase in blood flow as well.
It does. People go like I
It
remember
does.
Bonnie telling you the stories when the doctor had said have more sex and just use any lube. So she went to the store and she's looking at all the ingredients. KY is all petroleum jelly. All this stuff was all filled with toxins. And she eats an all organic diet, as I do. And those aren't things that we want to put on our bodies.
Absolutely.
And there was nothing that she could use. So that's how she ended up going to find someone to create this for her.
And
I
I
am
was doing
so
that 20 years ago, which 20 years ago, like people weren't really talking about organic that much. But I lived in California at the time and I knew about it. And I knew a naturalist from the time I was like 20 something years old who really woke me up to all the food and everything. So I was looking at ingredients and everything for a long time already by that time.
Yes. And anytime you put any toxic products on your body, it's going to absorb into your body and then it becomes part of your body and you can become toxic over time. And that the toxicity often is held in your fat cells. So a lot of times when people lose weight, what happens is that the toxicity is released and their body rebounds and grabs more fat because it needs to save the organs from the toxicity, and so you have a rebound effects. So when you want to lose weight, the best way to do it is by eating fruits and vegetables. And I talk about nutrition a lot because fruits and vegetables help your body to take those toxins and flush them out of your system. So you're eating healthy, but you're also cleansing your body. And it's so important to drink water too. And we talk a lot about that as well. You're going to be dry, right? If you don't drink enough water, you must drink water, a lot of it, to really cleanse your body out. You're not going to wash a big sink of dishes with a little, like, tiny half a cup of water. You're going to use water until it's all completely cleaned out. And if you think about the inside of your body and cleaning the inside of your body, you must drink lots and lots of water to constantly cleanse those toxins out as well. And
But
so I always recommend half of your body weight in ounces to drink every single day. Go ahead.
So like I say, I recommend half your body weight in ounces per day. Weight Watchers tells you 8 cups of water. Yeah, if you're 128 pounds, that's perfect. Most women are not 128 pounds unless you're Bonnie Gayle.
Way less than that.
I know you do. You know, 128 pounds would be really high for her. And for me, it would be really
That would be high for me.
Yeah. So, but everybody's different.
But you know what? Sorry. I wanted to add one thing. So a good thing to do if you're dehydrated and a lot of people, their body really doesn't absorb the water properly, is to take 3 granules of Celtic salt and put it on your tongue or put it in the water. And then what will happen is your body will actually absorb the water better also.
Yeah.
That's a great tip. And it's,
But
go ahead, Bon.
people think that any liquid that they drink is water. It's not. So
That's
coffee
right.
is made with water. But if you drink a cup of coffee, you need to have 2 extra cups of water to because coffee is dehydrating, tea is dehydrating, caffeine is dehydrating. So what you have to do is make sure that you're really drinking enough. I actually have an electrolyte packet that I put a lot of times into a quart of water and drink it, and it really makes a difference for me.
That's a great tip as well, because yeah, absolutely. You must drink lots and lots of water and coffee or anything with caffeine, any caffeinated beverage is considered a diuretic and it actually makes you pee, right? And you may know that if you drink a cup of coffee in the morning. I don't know, for me, always know that I use the bathroom a lot from the morning till probably 12 or 1 in the afternoon because of the coffee that I drink. And then the rest of the day, I may not use the bathroom as much, but at the beginning of the day, I do because that's when I have my coffee. And so it makes you flush out and you're flushing out the water that you need. So 2 extra cups when you drink a cup of coffee, that is a great point. This brings us to our very final question. And I like to ask this of all of my guests. In season 3, this is the question I've been asking. So I'm going to start with Bonnie Gayle. What do you bring? And I have a feeling I know the answer, but what do you bring to the bedroom to make it spicier?
Okay. Sex butter and a flog.
Oh, okay. We have a dominatrix over here, incognito. We're going to have to talk about that and maybe have another episode another day. I
All
love
right.
it. The flogger. And the flogger can certainly bring more circulation to wherever you're using it. And now, Bonnie Rogers, I want to hear your answer.
I'm not adventurous like that. I have my sex partner and my husband.
And your husband.
Sometimes it's me, and that's
Right.
okay, but not usually. He's around a lot. He's a high testosterone kind of guy.
Okay, so that's all you need. You need one of those guys, right? And let me tell you, masturbation is so important. And I love to talk and encourage women to masturbate because, like you said before, that is really the only way that you can truly know your body. And if you don't know how to climax on your own, it's going to be really hard to climax with a partner and to translate that to your sexual experiences. So, masturbate, experiment with your body, know what works for you, find the toys that work for you. Maybe it's a flogger by someone else, or maybe it's a vibrator or a toy that can really help you to get there. And then when you do know what works for you, you want to translate that information to your partner and to the bedroom because that is how you are going to get your needs met. And oftentimes I talk about the orgasm gap, right? And today is actually, this episode is actually episode number 20 of season 3. And we talk a lot about the orgasm gap on this show. And the orgasm gap is a phenomenon that happens in heterosexual relationships where women are having less orgasms than men. And that happens from hookup sex all the way to married sex, right? And everything in between. And so closing that orgasm gap is a mission of mine. Do you want to jump in and just say anything about the orgasm gap?
Absolutely. So I will say that one of the things that I love about sex butter is that it makes it so much easier to have an orgasm, not just to become stimulated, but to literally allow your body to really go into that pleasure, just push yourself over the edge. Whether, and I definitely agree with you that it's important to learn how to have an orgasm on your own before you're with a partner, or even if you're with the partner to do it, start doing it now. Because the thing is that the best way to have the best orgasms is to know your body and then be able to help your partner help you.
That's right. Helping your partner to help you. And that requires communication. You want to jump in and say something about communication, Bonnie Rogers?
I mean, I think it's important. It's really important. As I'm in total menopause right now, sometimes I have a really hard time going over, but I'm okay if I don't go over sometimes because I just feel good. And my husband will go like, "We got to get you over." I'm like, "It's okay." And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't, and I'm okay with it. He's not always okay with it, but that's okay.
I love that your husband really wants to pleasure you because oftentimes men are like, okay, if you're fine, that's fine with me. And we move along and maybe it's really not internally fine with you. And it shouldn't be the purpose of having sex, but if you discount it and say, I'm never going to get there, you never will. So
I
I
know,
think it's
and
important to have it as a goal for
yeah,
sure.
I mean, and so you have to be comfortable with where you are in your body. I had somebody call me up the other day. They were calling me up where I was having lunch with a friend. I can't remember who it was. I let those things go. I don't really want to, keep those in. But they were like, their husbands are women. Thank you, ma'am. And she says, I need more. And she, she said, I know who it is now. She basically said to me, I told him 2 years ago I was done. And he's hanging in there. And I'm like, I was doing a biomagnetism session on her. And I said, you need more sex. I said, even if it's just by yourself, you need to have more stimulation in there because that area of your body holds a lot of pathogens and you want to let them go. And so it's about, yes, you're going to urinate them out, but you also need to let them out in many different ways. And we use that as a drainage portion for the body, bladder drainage, bladder, vagina, kidneys, things like that. We're trying to get rid of all the crap in our body. And it's really important to orgasm because it's a way of releasing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. So, on that note, I want to thank both of you guys, both of you Bonnies, for being on the show
Thank you.
today. This has been such a wonderful conversation. And I also want to mention here before we get off that today is the 20th episode. And also today I got an email saying that I have reached 10,000 downloads. So it is also a milestone in the
Very cool.
podcast. So I'm so excited to be able to share that with everybody. And I want to make sure that people know that they can support the show and go to pleaseme.online. And with that, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Until next time.
Bye.
Looking for the best live streaming or podcast recording site? Look no further than StreamYard. Get $10 off your first purchase. For podcast hosting, Buzzsprout is the absolute best option out there. Get $20 off your first purchase. Feel free to call me on the OWL app. Use code EH576472 for $10 free to use on the best networking app around. Give me a call. If you're experiencing sexual issues and need a physical therapy consultation or appointment, reach out to Eve and make an appointment on pleaseme.online. See all links and info in the show notes.